Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very first podcast. Anne Marie, please, why don't you introduce yourself and take it away?
Okay, thank you, Audie. My name is Anne Marie. I'm the owner operator of Third Space Vintage, Antiques and More. I've been in the biz. This is my 11th year. My I just completed 1 year with an actual brick and mortar, but I had an online Etsy shop for 10 years. But always been a thrifter. Always one who sought antiques, vintage items. Always had a passion for it, never had considered a business, but it just kind of, the universe just kind of brought me here. And it's been an incredible experience. Today, I wanted to talk about one of the services that we offer with Third Space, which is having one of us come to a home and evaluate items for somebody. And basically, what that involves is if somebody is has a lot of items, for whatever reason, they're downsizing, there's a death, they're just deciding that it's time to give up items, but they're concerned and they're worried about the value. And this is something that we offer, is to come in and say, hey, this particular item might have a value. This you can donate. Another thing was, thrifted items. It's being able to provide comfort for somebody, that the item is going to not only find a place, but you're not giving away something that's $1 million. And I know that's something a lot of people are worried about. So today I wanted to talk about the different apps that are being offered online, and of course Google Lens. And the question is, well, why would you, hire somebody? Why would you pay for somebody to come to your home and to go through all these items when you can have this at your fingertips? Um, so I wanted to address the apps first. Um, Forgive me for looking down a little bit, a
That's
notebook
okay.
here.
Because it is difficult sometimes, and uh, sometimes you're holding on to something that is has more emotional and sentimental value, and just to you yourself, and in your mind, it's worth a whole lot. Uh, but in the rest of the world, it may not be worth that much. So,
And I find I encountered that a lot with talking to people. And it's not that it doesn't have a value. Obviously, it has a precious value, just not necessarily a
right.
financial value to it. But a lot of it is, I get a lot of people that I talk to in my business with the when I've done fun, volunteer work, with rummage sales, and working with thrift store food pantries. They don't want to just throw items away. They want to make sure that we find a good place for them, and that's something we offer, as well as our suggestions. The other aspect is the concern. Oh my goodness, am I giving away something that's worth $1 million? So, like I said, I could come in and take a look at things. I'll give you an idea of it. I obviously don't know it all, and if I don't, then we'll research it together. And I'm happy to go through how I do what I do, how I gain that knowledge, because that's invaluable. So, when I leave, hopefully you are able to. You've got a toolbox now of things that you didn't know before, and hopefully you're able to evaluate better yourself.
Mhm.
So
Great, great, great. So, so let's then move on to the apps that you were mentioning. Sounds intriguing.
Okay. All right. Well, I looked at it. It seems the top two are Antique Identifier, Antique Appraiser, and then I went and I looked for, and I was curious myself because I do some jewelry evaluations. I'm not a jeweler. I'm not a gemologist. I'm not certified in that area. But what I can do is I can tell you that this may be something, and that alone, putting it aside and saying, you know what, we can research this more, or we need to refer this to an expert. So I wanted to kind of test out the first two, the antique identifier and the antique appraiser. But what I came into basically was they're not free. They do have a subscription. You do have to pay for it. There's one from Cherish. Excuse me, not Cherish. It's another entity where you can compare values. Uh,
Mm,
and you know, so I want to address that. It's not free. You're going to have to pay for it. And so, in that case, I would rather consider, I guess, Google Lens, at least at first, because you know what? The most important thing is that you know what you have. Once you know what you have, then you can work with it and you can find values based on, the industry standards for it. But I didn't, at least it didn't appear to me that it offered much more than, say, a Google Lens. The one that was very interesting was the jewelry identifier. And
mm,
again, you can get one or two items tested for free and just kind of test it out. And then they start charging you weekly or monthly or yearly, depending on that.
mm,
And I confess, I was very, very surprised at it. I mean, the two that I had evaluated the jewelry ahead of time for a local food pantry thrift store.
mm,
And so I was curious to see what the jewelry identifier would come up with. And it was very impressive. It showed the weight. I mean, it wasn't just this is this and this is a value. It gave a weight, it gave an age, it gave a condition, which, it's an estimated weight. Mind you, this is a picture that they're working with.
mm,
Um, but in the end, it gave an estimate. And it really didn't kind of refer to where that, I mean, I guess it's across the internet type of thing.
mhm,
And that can be problematic because anybody who's tried to research something and it's been multiple different prices,
yeah.
and you just don't know. You don't know, where to go, and the range is so big. But in the end, at the bottom, basically what it said is this item may need to go to a jeweler for
Mhm,
further evaluation. So it's giving you an idea. I liked it. I liked it. If you got the time to sit there, you've got a couple pieces, that may be the best option for you. But if you've got an inheritance, you've got, drawers full of jewelry, uh,
mm,
and things of that nature, then it may be more advisable for somebody to come in and kind of help you out with that. So that's on, I'm not discouraging the app. I'm just saying that in some cases you're still going to need a live person that has experience and skill in that arena. And so and with that I want to refer to Google Lens, which I personally use all the time. That's a key
mhm,
feature.
good,
um,
yeah,
and I'm happy to teach people how to use it. And so it can be, so just to briefly, the jewelry that I evaluated, one of the volunteers had kind of set them aside first. So it's like a first tier person. The jewelry comes into the thrift store. This first tier person kind of looks through it, analyzes it, and puts items aside for me to evaluate. And so they already had gone through it once. I did the evaluations today, and using the Google Lens, some of it was pretty good, but a lot of it pulled up items that were just completely,
mm,
um, yeah, just
yeah,
not. And you can pull up an item, and it's still not going to necessarily give you the value. We have industry standards on what we use to base pricing. And a lot of my customers come in and they're dealers themselves. They're resellers, and they're
mm,
expecting to have these prices in line with these industry standards. And you can really turn off somebody if your prices are too high. So Google Lens is good for that first step. And like I said, this volunteer before me kind of looked through the stuff, and some of it she had a pretty good eye for, and some of it she was a little bit misled on with the Google Lens. So it really does help having to have some type of background in addition Because I see a lot, and they'll, oh, this comes up and it's, $300. What you have to keep in mind is on the internet, there are a variety of sellers, and
Mhm.
they're going to price it the way they want to price it. It doesn't
Right.
necessarily mean that's what the value or that's what it's going to sell for. So,
Yeah. Mhm.
to kind of wrap this up, um, use it as a first line of defense. But if you've got something that's really crucial, really important, something that could have a high value, take it to somebody or get somebody in to do an evaluation. It's worth it, if for nothing more than the peace of mind. So.
Yeah.
Well, it can be very misleading. I find the worst thing, when I'm out in the wild, searching for my finds, on all sides of me are people with their phones out, and that Google Lens is being used, and it can be a valuable tool. All these apps can, but it can also be tragically misleading, and people will often pay too much for items or
Mm.
think that they're going to get more for an item, and that's the other side of the coin is, they put their items up for sale and they don't sell, and then they end up getting frustrated and just giving the items away, where if you had it priced right,
Yeah.
and the right target audience, and you know what you're dealing with, and then the fact of jewelry, that it's just incredibly complicated.
Mhm.
um, there's so many aspects to it, which is why, people are specialized in that, and even in the gems itself, they're very specialized. It's a very, high skill,
Yeah.
to have, and we just need to recognize that. Like, when I said it, like I say, it's a good starting point, but it's kind of like, you've got an idea or concept, and you go to the library, and you know you
Yeah.
start to pull out books. Um, it, it's it's a it's a good starting point, but
Mhm.
consider if it's something important, or you're just completely overwhelmed, to bring somebody in.
Right, right. And the other apps, can you mention the other apps that you were talking about?
It was, Antique Identifier and,
Okay.
Antique Appraiser were the two. What I saw, were the two top ones, and they had
Right.
pretty decent ratings on them. But
Okay.
people just have to be mindful. It's not an instant expert. And a lot of them run on AI, which, at this point in time, can be very useful or can be very harmful.
Mm. Yeah.
So, take it with a grain of salt.
Yes. Wow. Well, lots of great information. Anne Marie, thank you so much for sharing your
Are you
knowledge.
welcome? Yeah.
And